Hola a todos y bienvenidos de nuevo a un nuevo video. Espero estés súper bien porque hoy vamos a subir de nivel. Ahora, los videos que hemos estado viendo anteriormente han estado un poco en el área básica, pero a este punto ya debemos ser expertos en inglés. Bueno, no tanto, pero sí ya tenemos un poquito las bases. O incluso puede ser que ese es el primer video que estás viendo de nosotros y tú ya cuentas con un nivel previo. Pero como ya hemos visto en videos anteriores, Linguatec se enfoca en que tú puedas hablarlo, que es lo más difícil, la verdad. Muchas personas comentan que yo leo el inglés, lo escucho y lo entiendo, pero ya a la hora de yo responder, ahí es el problema. Y nosotros sabemos que es el problema principal, así que estamos aquí para ayudarte. Y el tema de hoy está perfecto para ese mismo propósito. El tema de hoy es Making Small Talk. Y si tú tienes nociones en inglés, sabes que la traducción exacta es hacer plática pequeña. Entonces, ¿qué significa eso? Bueno, en inglés, making a small talk o small talk en sí es como esa plática superficial al principio de una conversación. Es la plática que tú puedes hacer en la parada de camiones, esperando pasar con el doctor, en alguna oficina de espera, en cualquier lugar, y lo puedes hacer con cualquier persona. Entonces eso es genial para practicar específicamente en los contextos donde tú quieres practicar tu inglés. ¿Por qué? Bueno, tiene dos aspectos muy importantes, que es sencilla, son términos básicos, son temas que si ya tienes nociones en inglés ya has visto un poquito, y se puede hacer en la mayoría de los lugares, porque claro que nada se puede hacer en todo, ¿verdad? Pero aquí vamos a ver puntos básicos para que tú logres tener y logres perfeccionar tu plática superficial. ¿Estás listo? Empezamos. Ok, así que para los fines informativos de este video vamos a utilizar más que nada el inglés, ¿ok? Recuerda, al principio puedes parecer abrumador tener una clase 100% en inglés, pero yo no te voy a exigir que entiendas el 100%, sino que entiendas ciertas palabritas y las rellenes con tu conocimiento previo de tu primer idioma, que es el español. Así que no te preocupes, estrés lejos, porque sí vas a entender lo que vamos a estar hablando. Aparte que ya sabes que en Linguatec nos gusta poner ayudas visuales, así que no vas a estar perdido, te lo prometo, ¿sale? Ahora, now guys, I have two questions for you. The first question is, what is a small talk? What is a small talk? We already talked a little bit about this, but remember, a small talk is similar to an icebreaker. You know, that kind of conversation that you start with a person, just talk a little bit, maybe to kill time, maybe to get to know the person, or maybe because you want to make friends. Either way, it's good to know how to make small talk. And I don't know about you, but I am a mixture of an extrovert and also an introvert, because in some situations I feel like an introvert and I feel really shy to speak to someone else, even more in a language that probably I'm not the best at. But don't worry, I'm gonna give you some tips so you can make better that kind of a flow of a conversation. And I'm gonna give you some expressions that you can use to, keep the conversation going. Now, that is the first question. What is a small talk? It's like an icebreaker. Now, the question is, where can you make a small talk? Well, you can make a small talk in many places. For example, what could be, as we already talked about, is at the doctor's office. You could be in a waiting room, or you can do it even in the park, in a restaurant, in any public context, at an airport. That is a very good place to make small talk. Maybe with the passenger next to you, you see that person also speaks English and you're like, I can try my English right now. So I'm going to give you some tips during this class for you to improve in your small talk. Now, if you have knowledge of small talk or you have practice of small talk in Spanish, this is gonna help you a lot as well. Remember, we always rely on our first language to improve our second language, so it's gonna be a great help. Now, we're gonna start with the first topic, which is topics for small talk. What can we talk about and what can we not talk about? Okay? Muy bien, entonces empezamos with the topics that you shouldn't touch in a small talk, because it's important to know what not to do as well. So for example, a topic that shouldn't be in a small talk is like controversial topics, like the death penalty, for example. Do you have a lot of controversial stuff? So try not to touch those topics, because maybe you have a very strong opinion about it and the other person also has a very strong opinion about it. So let's not get into it, you know? Another topic that shouldn't be in a small talk are things like politics. Sometimes some people make small talk about politics, and while it stays civil, is good. But again, happens to be a very controversial topic, and maybe you have a very strong opinion about it, and the other person as well, and they don't collide, you know. So let's avoid those topics. Now, another topic that this you can either take it or leave it, but are health problems. Maybe the conversation could become a little bit uncomfortable if you're still talking, oh my god, my back hurts so much, or this hurts so much, and you start complaining about it, it can get kind of uncomfortable. However, some people connect with this kind of topic, even more older people. It happens to me when I take my grandma to the doctor. She connects with other people by explaining what things she has, and the other people, oh, you have this, I have this and this, and they make small talk about it. So I think this depends a little bit on the context, so you know, take it or leave it. Another topic that shouldn't be kind of in the small talk area is how much you make. This for the things. Some people do not like to talk about money, and it's kind of uncomfortable. And also, if you make some money, you don't want to know other people to know that you have money, you know? So that's personal information, so you can keep it to yourself. That's better. Even if you have a little bit more like trust with the other person, you can talk about it. It's not a big deal. But to a stranger, not so much. Which takes me to the fact that you can make small talk with friends and family, but also with strangers. And it's very, very nice to talk with strangers because that stranger can become a friend. And if it's a stranger that speaks English, even better. You practice the language, and also maybe you make a new friend. Who knows? So that is why it's so important to know what kind of small talk is good and what kind is not small talk. Okay, so now we have the topics that we don't want to touch in a small talk. But let's talk about the topics that are in a very good ground to, you know, check in a small talk, you know? Now, what kind of topics are good for a small talk? Well, they can be about the latest films, the latest movies. Hey, I just saw a movie the other day and it was really good. That's a great topic. You can also talk about local sports. Maybe there's a local soccer team or basketball team, and it's a great way to start a conversation. But you have to check if the other person is really into sports, because if they're not really into sports, they can get bored really easy, and it's harder to keep the conversation going. So you have to read the room. Now, you can also talk about hometowns. That can mean like the city that you live in. For example, I live in a very small city, so everybody loves to talk about it. Like, oh, the food here is great, I love this place, I love that place, I love the park, I love etc. you know? Or maybe the person is not from here. So we talk, hey, where are you from? Hey, I see your accent, or I check that you're kind of lost, maybe you're not from here. And that person can really start talking about other places that they know, the place that they come from, and it becomes a very enjoyable small talk. So that's a very good topic actually. Now we also have holidays. What does this mean? Well, you can talk about where did you go on your last vacations. For example, you can say, oh, last vacations I went to this beach, it was really nice. And the other person can come with another place. Oh, last vacations I went to a different beach and I really enjoyed it, or I visited the city, or we only had a few days but it was enjoyable. And you know, a lot of people have gone to vacations, so it's a good topic. Or maybe you're meeting someone new in a vacation. So, well, that's a good way to make friends from other parts of the world. Now, you can also talk about family. Yes, but again, it depends on the context, you know? Because, for example, I think that each one of us includes our loved ones in our conversations. Like, I remember that my brother does this, or my mom loves that movie, or my sister really enjoys gardening and stuff like that, you know? You can involve them, or even moms when they are leaving their sons or daughters at school. They can talk with other moms, my child does this and that, and it's a good way to have a small talk. However, again, let's come back to reading the context, you know? You have to check if the conversation allows for you to bring your family in. Remember, we don't want to give a lot of personal information to a stranger. So be careful with that. But from that, family topics are a great topic for small talk. Also, you can talk about the weather. This is personally my favorite topic because where I live, you can always start a conversation with the phrase, it's really hot out there, right? And everybody has a comment on that. They can, yes, it's so hot. Do you think that summer is gonna last too long? And you get a conversation going. So it's a great way to start. Maybe you are or live in a place that has a very specific weather, and you can talk about that with the locals. So it's a great way to start a conversation. Now you can also talk about your hobbies. For example, gardening, doing some sport, or you can have or start a conversation with the person and ask them about their hobbies. Maybe they have a hobby in common and the conversation flows beautifully. And also, another of my favorite topics is talking about pets. If the person that is talking to you has a pet, believe me, they are going to want to talk about their pets. For example, I have a little dog and it's my child. So in any conversation that I can talk about her, I will be happy to do so. Maybe you have a dog, maybe you have a cat, a hamster, a bird, any kind of animal that you have. Maybe you have so much love for them that you would love to share it with someone else, or express the things that you do with them, or maybe even the food or the bed that you go to. It's a great topic. So I really recommend you that one. If you notice that the person has pets, great topic to start a conversation with. And finally, you can talk about current news. For example, there were some very big news recently, so you can talk about that. For example, an earthquake that happened near, or something maybe not too sad, but you can talk about stuff that it's liked, but are current events that maybe the other person is into, or you're interested in talking about, or getting their opinion on it. For example, a new law, the change of schedule. You know, in some places they change the time like an hour after or an hour before, every 6 months. You can talk about that. It's a great topic and it keeps the other person interested. Okay, so now we have the topics, right? We are clear on the topics. We know what to talk about and what not to talk about. Now, let's check 3 aspects for you to improve your small talk, okay? The first one is asking open-ended questions. What does this mean? Well, if I ask a question like, do you like a cake? The person has the option to respond yes or no. And if they don't want to add anything else, it's a like, imagine a conversation like this. Do you like cake? And you want them to, oh yes, I like this cake and this, that, and so on. And the other person says no. The conversation dies there. So we want to avoid that. What are open-ended questions? Well, they are the questions that need more information than a yes or a no. Instead of, do you like cake? You can ask, what kind of cake do you like? And they're like, well, I don't really like cake, but I do like other desserts. And you can keep the conversation going. That's being a master of conversation, because I used to commit the mistake of asking just close questions like, and do you like music? They were like, yes. And that's it. So with time you get better, but this is a good tip. So asking open-ended questions. Another thing that is going to help you, the second aspect, it's very connected with the one before. It's encouraging your partner to speak. Remember, we want to have a conversation, not us talking and talking and talking and talking. So it's better if you encourage your partner to speak, because the other person will do the same. It's natural that they do the same. So you can encourage your partner to speak by using what we call question tags. What are question tags? Well, I like to call them like the little confirmation questions. For example, in Spanish it could be like, ay, está haciendo mucho calor, ¿verdad? Y al final, esa verdad es como para confirmar. In English happens the same. So for example, it could be, it's really hot outside, isn't it? Okay, those kind of question tags help you to keep the conversation going, because lets the other person know that you want to know their opinion about it. And they can answer, yes, it's really hot, or yesterday was way hotter than today. And it keeps the conversation going with a very nice flow. Also, another thing that is gonna help you is emphasizing the mutual interest that you have. For example, oh, I really like this music. Do you like it? And they can say, no, I'm not into that music, but I like this. And you're like, oh, I also like that band. And you get common interest, because again, we love to talk about ourselves, we love to talk about our interests, and when we connect with someone else, it gets a lot more information to keep the conversation. So, what do you think? Are you better at small talk? How are you going to apply these tips to your English practice? Tell us in the comments. Okay, so we are finally done with this topic. It's, a short video, but I'm sure that you're going to put into practice all the things that we saw here. Así que, ¿cómo te sientes? ¿Qué tanto pudiste comprender? O a lo mejor te sorprendiste de lo mucho que pudiste comprender el idioma, aunque a lo mejor tú digas, ay, casi no sé, o ando de cero, pero aún así tú puedes comprender muchas cosas. El punto es probarlas, eso siempre es importante. Así que con esto, bueno, llegamos al final del video. Espero te haya servido mucho y recuerda darnos tu opinión en los comentarios, así como suscribirte y activar la campanita para que no te pierdas ni uno de nuestros videos. Y si te interesa, ¿sabes? Profundizar tu inglés, mejorar tu inglés, pulir tu inglés, bueno, nos puedes contactar a cualquiera de nuestras redes sociales, que puede ser TikTok, Facebook, Instagram y también YouTube. O si hay un Linguatec cerca, qué mejor manera que ir a pedir información. Así que aquí estamos para servirte y espero te haya gustado este pedacito pequeño de una clase gratuita y espero te haya servido muchísimo. Así que nos vemos en el próximo video. Y recuerda, con Linguatec tú puedes.